Um, I guess it's kind of related. We're talking about like, the world becoming more dangerous, people being prepared for conflict in multiple domains. So this one is global turmoil pushing Japan to move away from pacifism to deterrence. Oh, yeah, pacifism. Okay, am I hearing something in my audio? Oh, maybe there's some ad playing or something. Yeah, it's gotta be this. Okay. Um, so pacifism is an interesting way to put it because Japan is already an American outpost next to China, right? Like it is entirely like their entire like yes, they don't themselves have that much of a military, but they just like outsource that to American military bases like on their soil as a deterrent against China or whatever. So this is kind of like I think what they're talking about more is not from pacifism to deterrence. It's from completely relying on America for deterrence to maybe relying on themselves for deterrence, which I'm kind of for, but also Japan has a very bad history when it comes to uh, their like imperial aggression around the region. So I'm also a little bit skeptical. Let's see what this has to say though. This is global turmoil pushing Japan to move away from pacifism to deterrence by the Japan Times. Um, So this picture says a demonstrator holds a paper fan featuring the number 9, referring to Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution, which renounces war as a sovereign right and prohibits the maintenance of armed forces. The post-war international order based on multilateral cooperation and free trade is on the verge of collapse. People now live in an era where merely advocating for peace is no longer enough to protect their nation's security. It is the duty of politics to bring the supreme law in line with the times to tackle new challenges. God, I wish they would stop playing this stupid ad. God damn it, dude. I hate capitalism. I hate it so fucking much sometimes. Anyway, it has been 79 years since the Constitution came into effect. Japan has enjoyed peace and successfully achieved economic development after the end of World War II with a ton of help from America and the West in general. It goes without saying that the pacifist Constitution has served as the foundation for this. Universal principle, no, it goes without saying that the like America built Japan up as a outpost against China. Like uh, it's hard to fail, right? It's really hard to fail when you have America essentially backstopping your development as a counterbalance against their enemies. It's the same way it's hard for like Ukraine won't ever fail as a country because America will constantly prop it up as a counterbalance against uh China. Same with like Israel will never fail because America props it up uh, as a counterbalance against Iran, and like Taiwan will never fail because America props it up. When America offers you unlimited support as like in exchange for being a vassal state that is there to counterbalance against their enemies, it's very hard to fail. Like you would have to be distinctly like terrible at managing your economy to fail because really America essentially operates like tells Japan what policies to do, what economic policies to do, like all that sort of stuff. Like Japan doesn't have a ton of sovereignty in this sort of like in this equation. So universal principles, popular sovereignty, respect for fundamental human rights, and pacifism must continue to be upheld. I like pacifism, so sure, and human rights. And sovereignty. I like them all. I don't think you really have sovereignty, but I do like all of those ideas in theory. At the same time, it is also a fact that the current constitution has failed to keep up with the times. The ruling and opposition parties should first draft specific text for articles to amend the constitution and hold discussions based on these drafts. This is likely to allow the points that need to be amended to be clarified. The preamble to the Constitution states that the people of Japan have determined to preserve the nation's security, trusting in the justice and faith of the peace loving peoples of the world. However, permanent members of the UN Security Council, countries that should bear responsibility for world peace, are now threatening peace. So this is like aimed at the United States, I think, generally. The and, maybe Russia too. Um, And maybe China. I don't know. They're probably like aiming this at everybody. Maybe they're not even aiming it at America, but America is definitely abandoning all aspects of like the UN and international law and all of that stuff and peace in general. Like America is throwing the entire concept of like soft power and you know, like uh like winning like getting concessions from other countries through diplomacy. Like America is throwing all of that in the trash bin. So like yeah, I don't know. uh Russia has continued its aggression. I should have just read the next sentence, apparently. Russia has continued its aggression against Ukraine for more than 4 years. The United States has also disregarded international law by launching attacks on Iran and allowing Israel to, this is me adding something, and allowing Israel to do like commit genocide in Gaza. China is stepping up pressure on neighboring countries and regions by wielding its economic and military power. It's so funny to me that like the most that they can say about China is that they're like, you know, they're trading more. They're trading more and they're trading in a scary manner. And also they're building up their military, which I get you, that can be, I guess, a little scary. But given the history between China and Japan, China has much more reason to fear Japan than Japan has to fear China. Amending pacifist constitution. The principle of the preamble that the Japanese people place trust in other nations does not hold true anymore. The era in which Japan relies on the United States for security and maintains the self-defense forces at a minimum level of capability is over. Discussions on the Constitution are essential from the standpoint of what role Japan should play in protecting the security of the entire Asian region. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with this. And I do think Japan needs its own sovereignty, which is why I am all for them like kicking out American bases and American troops from their country and developing some sort of deterrence based military capabilities. However, I'm highly skeptical. There's two countries that I am always highly skeptical of developing military capabilities. That's Germany and Japan. I'm going to be honest. Those are the two that I am always very, very skeptical of. And you might say like, oh, it's because they were the bad guys in World War II or whatever. Kind of. It was because it's because of their history of imperialism. And like, for instance, like Germany rearmed before World War One and rearmed before World War Two. So whenever Germany starts building up its army and stuff again, like it's usually like a prelude to World War. And then obviously, yes, there are the atrocities that that Germany committed. But then Japan, not only just World War II, but Japan has a terrible history of imperialism, particularly with China. And so that's why I'm very like, you know, a little bit hesitant for those two countries in particular to build up, you know, large militaries. But if they were, I would prefer that they would get embedded in a regional security apparatus that included China, to be honest. If I had to guess, or if I had to give my opinion. But the Liberal Democratic Party has proposed maintaining Article 9 and creating a new clause called Article 9.2 to explicitly mention the SDF. However, the Japan Innovation Party and the Democratic Party for the People have argued that just stipulating the existence of the SDF could leave constraints on the exercise of the right to self-defense, given that these parties have called for deleting a provision in paragraph 2 of Article 9 that bans Japan from maintaining war potential and to explicitly reference the right to self-defense. Debate on amending article I keep hearing this whatever ad is playing that is so annoying. A debate on amending Article 9 has been on the wane lately, but this is an issue that should not be put off. As for lawsuits concerning disparities in the value of votes in national elections in recent years, the judiciary has interpreted equality under the law as equality in the value of votes and has called on the diet to correct these disparities. Okay, based on these judicial decisions, the ruling and opposition parties have reduced the number of regional electoral constituencies in the House of Representatives. In the House of Councilors, electoral districts and prefectures that neighbor each other were merged to create the Tottori, Shimane, and Tokushima Kochi constituencies. I think I went to Kochi when I was in Japan. Sorry, that's irrelevant to the article, though. I don't know that much about the internal like the internal various parties in Japan. So I and how their actual government is organized and operated. So I don't have a whole lot to say about that. Changing methods of warfare. The security environment surrounding Japan is becoming more severe than ever before. Japan also has to deal with new methods of warfare, including those involving the use of unmanned aerial vehicles, commonly known as drones. How can the necessary funding be secured to further strengthen the nation's defense capabilities in response to these circumstances? It is essential for the government to identify challenges involved in safeguarding peace and safety in the entire Asian region, and to establish a framework to translate these challenges into actions based on the opinions of experts. You're going to run into a lot of problems, Japan, because the primary problem is that you're going to need ungodly amounts of parts and components from China if you want to start building this stuff up. And China is going to be very wary of sending you these parts unless you engage in some sort of military military agreement with China that you won't use them against them in any way, shape, or form. Even then, they might be skeptical. That's why I'm saying like a regional apparatus for defense, I think is probably the best bet. You like China, Japan, North Korea, South Korea, Taiwan, like all of these countries should to some extent come together and determine a regional defense strategy. Is probably is my recommendation. But I think I read that one. By the end of the year, the government plans to revise 3 security documents, including the National Security Strategy, which sets forth the basic security policy, and the Defense Buildup Program, which specifies defense spending for 5 years that started in fiscal 2023. A panel of experts tasked with discussing how the documents should be revised has held its first meeting. The current documents, which were revised at the end of 2022, explicitly stated the need to possess counterattack and other capabilities to enhance Japan's ability to deal with missiles from China and North Korea. Defense spending was set at 43 trillion over 5 years. 43 trillion yen, by the way. Which in general, I think you can divide it by 100 if you're trying to get to American dollars. So what, 430 billion? I think is what that would be, which is still a lot. 430 billion. That can't be right. Is that right? Japan defense budget. I didn't think they spent that much. Maybe it's maybe I did the decimal point wrong. Yeah, 58 billion USD. Okay, so I had the decimal point wrong. I was like 430 billion seems crazy. That's like a third of America, which America is ungodly amounts of money. So since then, however, China has continued to build up its military capabilities, has become deploying aircraft carriers in the Pacific, and has repeatedly conducted military exercises. Russia and North Korea are deepening their military cooperation. It is clear that the security environment has deteriorated compared to the situation 4 years ago. It is appropriate for the government to advance the revision of the 3 documents to be prepared for these threats. The focus of the discussions leading up to the revisions is how to deal with new methods of warfare. Iran is deploying large numbers of low-cost drones to counter attacks by the United States and Israel. Yeah, that is the future of warfare, for sure. Currently, Japan lacks the foundation to produce drones that can be used in combat. It is essential for the government to help rapidly foster defense companies in order to procure high-performance drones. I'm curious what America is going to have to say about all of this, right? Because America is going to want Japan to just buy American military assets. And it won't be happy about Japan producing stuff themselves, I think. Generally speaking, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe America will allow that, but I don't think America is going to like that. In general, especially under Trump, their main thing is selling as many weapons as possible. So they want to they want to sell weapons to these people. Currently, Japan lacks the foundation to produce drones that can be used in combat. I think I already read that. Ukraine, which is being subjected to Russia's aggression, constantly faces a shortage of weapons. Maintaining combat sustainability is a significant challenge for any country. constantly faces shortage. Yeah, well, you know who else constantly faces shortages of weapons? America. America is like so terrible, like is unable to produce fucking shit, dude. America sucks at producing everything. Um, so maybe that's why they want to get, because it's like even if they were going to buy weapons from America, we blew through like half of our missiles in 6 weeks of war. So there might not be nothing left. So maybe that's why maybe that's what they're talking about, or why they're going about this. The government has revised the three principles on transfer of defense equipment and technology and their operational guidelines, paving the way for the export of lethal defense equipment, expanding sales channels overseas, and establishing a framework for mutual cooperation with like-minded nations is extremely important for Japan. If domestic production capability can be improved through such steps, the nation's combat sustainability will also be enhanced. I think Japan's problem is that they're just so aligned with the West, man. They're so aligned with the West that they can't see the benefit of having a regional defense pact with China. Like that's what they should do. Like it would be so much better for them to just be like aligned regionally with like China. Like China is also, you should get out ahead of it. China's the ascending superpower. America is a declining superpower. If you keep like hitching your like ropes to America, like they're going to drag you down with them. Like government support is essential for companies to export defense equipment smoothly. Perhaps government involvement in such matters as price negotiations should be considered. Okay. Going forward, the extent to which security-related expenditures, including defense spending, should be increased will also be a topic of the expert panel. Enhancing defense capabilities requires permanent fiscal resources. There should not be a casual reliance on government bonds, nor should stopgap measures be used. The government should directly seek the public's understanding regarding the securing of permanent fiscal resources. It's going to be hard, man. Getting the public on board for this. The public also do not let them fund this with austerity. Like you got it. Like we've been living through this forever in America, where they fund all of our, like the most inefficient system of procuring weapons ever in our defense department. They procure it that $1.5 trillion through austerity all the fucking time. Don't let them do that. If you're like, I would say as the people of Japan, I don't necessarily disagree that you should move away from depending solely on America for deterrence. My recommendation is primarily to get involved in a regional defense pact with China. But if you're not going to do that, if you are going to start building up your own military in particular, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, except for the fact that it's Japan and their history of imperialism, then make sure that it's funded by taxing the fuck out of your millionaires and billionaires. Okay. Don't let them do austerity to do this. Because yeah, it's nothing good happens from that. That would accelerate your descent into fascism, which with Takeichi, you're already getting there. You don't need it to go any faster.